Good evening and good to have you with us on this edition of the Urban Debate. Viewers, it's been a day of high drama at the Congress party, inside the CWC meeting and outside as well. In the build-up in the last few days, we saw reports suggesting Sonia Gandhi had offered to resign. We saw a letter written and publicly put out by 23 Congress leaders raising concerns about the party, their party's leadership, and asking if when the change will be made. In the light of all of this, as the core working committee met today, there was much conversation about what will happen next. Leader after leader, from chief ministers of various Congress-ruled states to the top veteran leaders to the young group of leaders in Congress party, everybody spoke out in the last few days about what they believe should be done. Should Sonia Gandhi continue? Should Rahul Gandhi take charge? Can somebody else take charge? What is the alternative? After all of that drama, it culminated into a news briefing and a CWC resolution that frankly doesn't really bring about any big change than what things are right now. I want to take you through what the Congress party's CWC resolution is. As you all know by now, Sonia Gandhi will continue to lead the party. Status quo there, no change at all. Much ado about nothing, it seems, because the Sonia Gandhi leadership situation has not changed. The CWC resolution says some interesting things. It starts off by talking about the unprecedented crisis that the country currently faces, lists out a set of different issues, then goes on to say that Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi have been at the forefront of exposing government's inadequate responses. In fact, it gives certain examples of what Sonia and her leadership has done and what Rahul has done. For example, it says Sonia Gandhi ensured Congress-ruled states tackled the pandemic effectively. It also says that Rahul Gandhi was at the forefront of raising the issues across the country when it came to the pandemic, especially the migrants. Sonia and Rahul both speaking regularly about that, cornering the government. And then it says the CWC has resolved to strengthen the hands of Sonia and Rahul in every possible manner. It also makes it very, very clear no one will be permitted to weaken the party and the party's leadership. If there are any issues that anybody has, that must be raised within the party, within the conversations that happen indoors, at the party platform, at the party forum, and not publicly. It goes on to say internal issues cannot be deliberated through the media. It authorizes the Congress chief, and this was a part that was highlighted by Randeep Surjewala even in the news conference. CWC authorizes Congress chief to effect necessary organization changes that she deems appropriate. So this is their justification that we've told Sonia Gandhi she has complete power to change whatever she thinks is right for the party and for the leadership. And goes on to say we request Sonia to continue to lead till such time AICC session can be convened. Effectively, no elections to be held in immediate future, no change of guard, and the Congress party believes that they are best served with Sonia and Rahul at the helm of the affairs. That effectively is what today's CWC was about. I'll take you through more details, some very interesting controversies that erupted in the last few days and today as well. But first up, let's say good evening to the panelists who are joining us right now. I have Ghanshyam Tiwari, spokesperson for the Samajwadi Party. But first up, I want to go across to Mr. Madhavan Narayanan, senior journalist, joining me this evening. Mr. Narayanan, what is your view of the decision taken today? Were you surprised that they actually didn't decide on any change?
Surprised by the decision, but what we should be surprised by is that for the first time in probably 25 years, we are seeing something that looks like dissent on a significant scale. We last saw this in the Surajkund Congress when Sonia Gandhi was trying to come back and there was an attempt to gently oust Narasimha Rao, and then there were some elections in the late 90s, and then Sonia came. And ever since the arrival of Sonia Gandhi in the party, seen, nothing has ever contradicted her or her leadership. So the dissent to me remains a bigger news item than the resolution, which you can call as an act of whitewashing. It was to be expected because I was thinking this morning that in Congress, elections are never held from below, it is always held from above. It's more selection than election. And this has been so even from Mahatma Gandhi's time, if you look at the history of the Congress party. Mahatma Gandhi himself created this whole syndrome of somebody being an extra constitutional authority. He even got Netaji Subhash Bose, who was formally elected out of the party at some point. So, be that as it may, in the current context, it is significant that a lot of people who are the so called dissenters and signatories to the letter that has become controversial are essentially those who had stood by Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi and still do in many ways, except that the party is looking like a regular party now. And the resolution is not surprising because there's a huge gridlock in the party. The gridlock is because it's packed with Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi loyalists who owe a lot to their personal lives and political careers. So the relationship politics and ideology politics and organization politics are three different things. At this point, relationship politics is triumphing over the organizational politics, and ideological politics can wait. But although nobody is really divided on ideology as far as one knows. But it's significant that a long-time Congress worker like Anand Sharma, who has been the president of the Indian Youth Congress and therefore cannot be in any stretch of imagination accused of being either disloyal or as a paratrooper into the party, is leading in some ways the charge as said by Ahmed Patel, who's actually a thorough Sonia Gandhi Nehru family loyalist. So therefore, we are seeing it for the first time in a very long time, in decades, that a party is split wide open. We are beginning to see something that looks like internal democracy in a party that hasn't been seeing this for decades and atrophy. There has been an atrophy of democracy in the Congress party, and we see flashes of it whenever the Nehru and Gandhi family are not there. But now we are seeing it while they are there, which is to me is one big breaking news. It shows the weakness of the party. It shows the concerns and worries not only about the party, but also about their personal futures among very senior leaders who've been signing. And I would also like it to go back a decade when Rahul Gandhi was taking over. He began having his own chosen people with not too much prior experience among his loyalists. And there was a simmering discontent in the Congress for a long time now. And now is the best time to play the cards for a lot of people who've not even been heard in spite of swearing by the party for decades. It's a sort of a moment of truth for the Congress. It's a moment of truth where they'll have to realize what is the relationship between the country, the ideology, the party, and the family. They've got to line these things up together. And it's in the best traditions of the party that they want to just keep it decent so that Sonia Gandhi is allowed time to digest the dissent. And I don't think anybody wants an overnight revolt because that's only going to harm the party. But it's time that the Nehru Gandhi family realize that, they have to shape up or ship out. And
But Mr. Narayanan, if I may just come in there, nothing in this statement or in the news briefing or any of the feelers that have been put out by the Congress party actually suggest that they are really going to look into the issues that have been raised by these party leaders, the 23 party leaders, and like you rightly said, many of them the old loyalists, Ghulam Nabi Azad, Veerappa Moily. We also have then Kapil Sibal, Manish Tiwari, Vivek Tanka, Prithviraj Chavan, Bhupinder Singh Hooda. The party's response has only been that it was incorrect for them to write this letter, that they could have raised it within its own internal forum. Party president's response was that she is extremely hurt and this was not a right step to take. nothing apart from that suggests that they're going to look into what has been raised. Isn't that a
Very
little,
good
disappointing that even now openly they're not going to look at it?
No, I'm not surprised by this at all for the simple reason that by the Congress Party's historical standards, this is uh, too too hard to digest so fast. So they will first put on their best face and then go back. There will be a lot of what in Hindi we call ghusur pusur within the party, which has been around. But for the first time, the leadership will have to consider everything. I think both the camps are giving each other a chance. It's a bit of a wit matching of wits that's going on right now. So what we're going to see is probably time for either skullduggery, that's the worst case scenario, or there will be time for reconciliation because they know that they are already weak as a party. And I don't think things have come to a point where Sonia Gandhi or Rahul Gandhi can crack the whip and hope to get away with it. Although their loyalists will try to protest too much on their behalf, which is sort of to be expected because that's how this whole culture of loyalty functions, whether it's the BJP or the Congress. We are a nation of sheep in many ways. I'm sorry to say this in a very cynical sort of a way. We love to salute leaders. We do not have a culture of open democracy. Look at the Democrats in the US who have open disagreements, and then Kamala Harris gets picked up by Joe Biden. So we do not respect open democracy. So there is a pretense of democracy, but which is more like a very feudal way of building consensus. So I would expect, I'm not surprised by the decision today, but we have to read between the lines. Today's meeting is very significant because if you get lost in the headline, you've lost the story. The headline is not that the Congress goes back to Sonia Gandhi and does nothing about it. The headline is that Congress has to now choose between implosion or reconciliation, and there will be a lot of, story ahead. As they say, picture abhi baki hai mere dost. We'll have to wait and see how it happens. But actually, the story is getting exciting. I don't think it's the same anymore.
Yes. Okay, let me also say good evening to Radhika Ramaseshan joining us right now and Mr. Sudesh Verma of the BJP. Radhika, do you agree with what Madhava Narayanan is saying, about the big story that's emerged from today's meeting?
Yeah, if it's very interesting because Mr. Anand Sharma, there was a flash that Mr. Anand Sharma went to Ghulam Nabi Azad's house. So there is going to be some kind of grouping again of the 23 who wrote the letter, 23 or more who signed the letter. It's also possible that they couldn't have met physically through this pandemic. So whoever is in Delhi is trying to regroup, probably re-strategize in the light of what happened in the meeting today. We do not know for sure whether they were ticked off in the way that it was put out earlier, and then the whole thing was kind of diluted as if there was some damage containment afoot. Mr. Kapil Sibal withdrew a tweet in which he kind of expressed his anguish on being accused of colluding with the BJP, which he said he certainly did not for the 30 years that he's been in the Congress. And having covered the Congress for some time, I can vouch that, Mr. Sibal is the last person who's going to associate with the BJP or have anything to do with the BJP. So obviously, those who have signed this letter, old loyalists who have stuck through thick and thin, considering that for the last 6 years or more, the Congress has had nothing to give them. They've reached the end of their tether, and then to be told off in a meeting by the leadership. There was even some news that Priyanka was very harsh on Ghulam Nabi Azad. Now, can Ghulam Nabi Azad's loyalty be questioned at any point? Certainly not. When now it cannot be questioned. Now, we don't know what she said, whether she really sort of ticked him off. But the point is that, this is not the way you treat your old timers. And, Ahmed Patel and Ghulam Nabi Azad are like the two pillars of support for Sonia Gandhi. We all know what the Congress has been through, what it is going through. And, to sort of, just because they raise some pertinent questions, tell me who has attacked the leadership. Nobody has attacked the leadership. I mean, it's for the media to interpret or construe things. That is the media's job. But if you go by the contents of the letter or whatever has been put out so far, there is nothing that has been nothing that denigrates the leadership. So there is no need for the Gandhis to get so uppity about it. It tells you one thing: the Gandhis alone have the prerogative to map out, to lay out a roadmap for their party, if at all they're interested in one, and anyone else who functions outside the circumference of discipline and dares to make some proposals, some suggestions, they will not take kindly to it. It does reflect on an autocratic style of functioning, certainly. Yeah. And
Yes, no, in
certainly,
fact, you're very right. What is it that the letter really says in terms of attacking the party leadership? Essentially, and what's been quoted in, in papers like Indian Express is that this letter calls for a full-time and effective leadership, which is both visible and
exactly,
active in the field. Now, that's a fact that the
absolutely.
current leadership isn't visible or active on the field for whatever be the reasons, and health being one of those for Sonia Gandhi. It calls for organizational restructuring, decentralization of power, empowerment of state units, elections to Congress organizations at all levels. Now, these are largely changes that are being suggested for the revival of the Congress party itself. Ghanshyam Tiwari, I fail to understand why the Congress leadership, especially Sonia Gandhi, feels hurt by this letter and they feel that it is wrong to ask for these issues.
Well, Tanvi, there's just too much playing out that one would fail to understand in this entire thing. There is no win-win that I see. While I can say that the political line is that we don't comment on other political parties and their internal matters, but the fact is that this is playing out in the open. As a result, it is building a public opinion about the weakness of the party. And the other thing that is playing out to a student of politics like me is that there is a group within Congress party that is becoming formidable challenger to the way Congress party stands today. From a BJP's perspective, which has attacked Congress party and Gandhi's synonymously, as if Congress party is the Gandhi family and Gandhi family is the Congress party, right? For them, it is going to be equally interesting because now there is a alternate group coming together in Congress, which is likely to harden its stand. While Mr. Madhavan says that they are going to have reconciliation, but I think the whole point of the way this played out, it seems that the two sides are going to harden their stand, and eventually it will lead to a very clear battle for who will lead the party. That is how it appears to be playing out.
If I can just come in. Hello.
Okay, let me also bring in Ms.
Yes.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, he's talked about the 23 or 25 the number who has signed, that they will harden their stand. Now, if you look at each of those individuals separately, I do not think individually or together as an entity they add up to a significant political conglomerate, if I can say that. I mean, the last time you saw a revolt within the Congress was when Mr. Sangma, Mr. Pawar, and Mr. Tariq Anwar challenged Sonia because of her alleged foreign origin. Now, my point is that Mr. Pawar had a formidable mass base, and therefore he could leave the Congress, branch on his own, build a party which is fairly successful. Likewise, for the late Mr. Purno Sangma, he also had a base in Meghalaya. So, if you study these individuals, for instance, Mr. Prithviraj Chavan, I do not think he can do anything on his own in Maharashtra, or Mr. Mukul Vasnik. He'll be very lucky if he ever wins in his Ramtek seat again. So, you have to consider that, what is their ground strength individually or together, and I'm afraid it doesn't add up to very much.
Okay, Mr. Sudesh Sharma of the BJP also with me. Mr. Verma, I wanted to ask you a specific question. This whole controversy that broke out, that even BJP reacted to, of Rahul Gandhi really saying that those who've spoken up have colluded with the BJP. And then Congress clarified, saying no, Rahul Gandhi didn't even make such comment. Leaders had tweeted, they deleted their tweet, they're back and forth. Do you really believe that this kind of a pressure was not put on those Congress leaders who spoke up, or do you think Congress later simply did damage control?
You see, it's for the Congress to set their own house in order, and we being outsiders, we will rate Congress on the front of democracy. Democracy for Congress has become a farce, and the bait of democracy, which the family gave to senior Congress leaders, and they committed the mistake of biting this. And that was the precise problem. They were trying to test loyalists. Who were the loyalists? Who were not? You heard the Kamraj plan, how Mrs. Gandhi, sidelined all senior leaders, and she wanted to have her own grouping. Maybe that is the stage now for Mr. Rahul Gandhi and Ms. Priyanka Vadra. You see, people of this country will rate you on the basis of democracy, whether your party is actually democratic or not. And if family is going to behave the way, because it's just personal fiefdom. And those names which you're seeing in the media, they all became big because of this family. Otherwise, I agree with Radhika. Probably this is what she was hinting at, that they don't have any political base. So Ghulam Nabi Azad or Kapil Sibal or Anand Sharma, who are they? Without the family, tell me. So if they dare to challenge, it's definitely a challenge. And how dare they? So it's time if the family wants to retain that grip on the Congress party, because the assets you control, the money you control, and that is how you run the party. And you know what happened when Sitaram Kirti became the president? It becomes quite difficult if anyone else becomes president of the Congress. So the family will continue. Family is a liability, but you have to live with the liability. The congressmen have been told in no uncertain terms that you cannot get rid of the Congress family. And rightly so, people of this country will judge on the basis of whether they support nepotism, whether they support this family and dynasty running this country. Then they will vote on that count, and if they are going to expose them on this basis.
But it definitely makes your life easier, Mr. Sudesh Verma, if the Congress is busy with their own internal issues and fighting, and there is no clear leadership, as many say, then BJP ends up having one less strong rival, isn't it?
Do you think the Congress is in a position to challenge us? We don't think so. And Congress Mukh Bharat is going to happen sooner rather than later. And unless they change their value system and they allow democracy to survive, youngsters are not going to join the Congress. Because you have to become, genuflect before the dynasty. And not many people with a sense of pride will do that. And at least not those who have their own political base or those who want to do politics in a very right sense of the term. So it's very difficult for this party to survive. And we wish that in democracy they inculcate democratic values. And Rahul Gandhi once promised change, and he picked up youth and started democracy in Youth Congress. That was the right beginning. But after that, everything, took a U-turn. Because this cannot happen in the Congress. It's not, you can't imagine a Congress without someone from the dynasty ruling the Congress. And for us, they have democracy is good for the country. We are going to expose them. Because the way they have ruined the country, they have looted the country, people know everything. And we are going to expose them in any case.
Okay. Two people raised their hands. First to Mr. Madhavan Narayanan and then Ghanshyam. Mr. Madhavan Narayanan, do you agree that they claim to fight for democracy, but there isn't any within the Congress party?
Well, that's sort of known, but it's interesting that democracy is sprouting in some form because of these 23 people backed by hundreds of people coming in. But I want to pick up on some very important point raised by my friend Radhika Ramaseshan, that many of the signatories of these dissenters are not really mass leaders. But I would like to point out that things have reached a point where Rahul Gandhi is no longer able to hold on to even Amethi. Therefore, this party has now ceased to have any mass leader of significance. And you have to contrast it from the days when Indira Gandhi could command 2/3 majority in parliament by her sheer charisma. The organization depended on her, not the other way around. So now I'm reminded of a play called 6 Characters in Search of an Author. So these are like 23 characters in search of a party or a leader. So what the Congress really needs now is a face. Now, all names have been mentioned in conversations. You have Sachin Pilot, you have Amrinder Singh. Sachin Pilot is constrained because of not only because of his recent controversial run-in with Ashok Gehlot, which kind of contains him within Rajasthan, but there are party veterans who are acceptable, but no one has given them a try, and it is part of the political correctness within the Congress not to challenge the leadership, but that is changing. What it needs now is a face for all these people to gather around. Who will that face be, if at all there is a dissent, is a big question. Because if merely deal making with coalition partners is an issue in a caste and community and issue based politics, then any old guy can do it. Any smart, deal maker can do it. But Narendra Modi is very important because he has presidentialized the Indian parliamentary system. People seem to want face, people seem to want somebody who can speak, and people who seem to want a new set of issues or ideas. So the Congress, I tweeted today that Congress doesn't need a shake-up now, it needs a creative meltdown. And these people who have nothing to lose and everything to gain, because they've sort of de facto been not sidelined, but sort of ignored in the party. And to that extent, but these people carry a lot of weight, not just in the media, but there is a certain moral authority when people who've been loyal to the party and indeed the family for decades come and make a very articulate argument in favor of change. Now, I have always believed that the Indian middle class is not electorally important, but it some way creates a certain thought pattern which triggers political change even at the rural level. In that sense, if you stand back and look at it socially, this dissent is important. And to that extent, I see that at some point, somebody will emerge as a face. And it does look like that is where we should be focusing on. Who is going to be the person who will lead the dissenters if there is dissent that challenges the leadership? If not, there is going to be only a state of
okay, I just want to.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. I'm sorry for that, but I just want to update our viewers as well on the fact that, it's not just Anand Sharma who is at Ghulam Nabi Azad's residence. For the past half hour, 40 minutes now, several other leaders have also reached there, especially those who, along with Ghulam Nabi Azad, had raised this issue. Shashi Tharoor, Kapil Sibal, Manish Tiwari, they're all at Ghulam Nabi Azad's residence right now. Radhika Ramaseshan, does it look like even though the CWC meet and the resolution is done, that the issues that have been raised will continue to be spoken within the top leadership of Congress and something may come out of it?
I don't know if anything is going to come out of it because, as Madhuvan rightly pointed out, that you need a face to articulate an alternate viewpoint, even within the Congress. When the BJP was also in the throes of a leadership crisis before 2013, before Mr. Modi was first named as the chairman of the campaign committee for the next Lok Sabha elections, and subsequently as a PM candidate. If you remember, there were struggles at various levels. A section was unprepared to accept Mr. Modi as the prime ministerial candidate, notably Mr. L.K. Advani, and to an extent the late Sushma Swaraj. But the vital difference between the BJP and the Congress is the BJP is fortunate to have the RSS. I mean, people may diss the RSS as hardline Hindutva, as over conservative and that kind of a thing. But I always believe that as a political arbiter, the RSS is very important for the BJP, and the Congress lacks a mechanism or an institution like that. Okay, now Ms. Madhavan also raised the point about a face, about a leadership. I think the Congress will have to go to the states in search of its faces. Who are the individuals who have been relatively successful in the recent past? You have Mr. Bhupesh Baghel. He's supposed to be doing a reasonably okay job of Chhattisgarh in the circumstances, without too much help from the center and so on. There is Captain Amrinder Singh. Okay, well, age may not be on his side, but he is he has proven himself as a fairly effective leader. Of course, there is Mr. Ashok Gehlot. So my point is that if this other group um, wants to look for a face or something like that, they have to look at the states, because the states are the ground from which you are going to get leadership, whether it is in the BJP or in the Congress or any other party. The states are really the fertile ground for nurturing
Hmm.
states, I believe. It's not Delhi and certainly not Plateau state.
Yes, but in fact, repeatedly, Ghanshyam Tiwari, we've seen in states where Congress does have a strong state leadership, other states where they are still doing a little bit, well, and are either in power or at least a strong contender. But unfortunately, that's not what's happening elsewhere.
Well, Tanvi, I see this in a very positive light. The reason I see this in a positive light is one, at a national level, if you see, there is BJP that has clearly identified itself, whether RSS is good or bad, but it is clearly identified itself as a point of view which will remain unscientific, which will remain rhetorical, and which will not be harmonious. Their top leaders that are emerging in Delhi, Kapil Mishra, in Uttar Pradesh, Adityanath, these are the faces. If you talk about who are the more talked about leaders, what are they talking about, and how do they popularize themselves? They popularize themselves not on ideas and visions. They popularize themselves either praising Mr. Modi or saying something which breaks the harmony of the country. This is the nature of Bharatiya Janata Party today, and it is not promising to the middle class, to anyone who's educated, who wants a harmonious, progressive India. Neither is the narrative of unemployment or job creation or better education, right, or social reforms. This is not the narrative of Bharatiya Janata Party. Democracy is not a narrative of Bharatiya Janata Party. So while Bharatiya Janata Party remains a formidable organization, it has led away a very vast narrative that is important for middle class, that's important for anyone who aspires to see a better India. Now look at the other side. On the other side, at the national level, you see, as I will continue to believe, that there is hardening of stands, and as a result, there is a challenger that is emerging. That challenger is going to challenge on these very issues, and if they succeed, then they will have a huge space to talk about these particular issues that have not been able, that at a national level have not been able to get the spotlight they deserve. So if people like Manish Tiwari, Shashi Tharoor, all these people succeed in pushing the other side to some kind of arrangement where there is a wider leadership, where BJP cannot attack one family and Congress in the same sentence, then it opens the alternative of a new frame at a national level that talks about issues that BJP has chosen not to talk about, that talks about a kind of leadership which is harmonious, educated, progressive, that BJP cannot provide, and that is a good news for Indian politics. So while what happened today may be bad PR for Congress party, but I think where this is headed from a national narrative perspective makes me positive that it will open doors for issues and leaders that are important to the country come at national stage and find a spotlight for themselves.
Tanvi?
I don't know how you're so optimistic about that, because effectively from where I stand, nothing has changed. Yes, Mr. Sudesh Sharma.
Yeah, I would like to respond to what Radhika said about RSS. Let me remind her that when Mr. Modi was projected as the prime ministerial candidate, it was based on feedback from the people. People are very important. It's not the leaders who decide. It's the support a leader gets from people. And RSS mechanism works as a feedback mechanism. The BJP itself has a great feedback mechanism. And everybody in the BJP cadre was talking about Mr. Modi. One or two leaders may have opposed. That demonstrates that BJP is a democratic party. But at the same time, Mr. Modi became the prime ministerial candidate because of the huge support he was getting. People of this country wanted to see him as prime minister, and you saw that translate into results of 2014, which got revindicated in 2019. Coming to the point of Mr. Tiwari, you see, I can understand that a party that glorifies dynasty will support a dynasty party. I can also appreciate that you want the Congress to revive, which is not going to take place. And take it from me that by tomorrow, all these leaders will genuflect before the dynasty, pass a resolution expressing their confidence in the leadership of Gandhi family. Take it from me. There is not going to be any dissent. There is not going to be any democracy. That is what you are holding on to. If you want to debate about our ideology, that's a different matter. I can join in a separate debate. I don't want to deflect, but we are very confident. The people of this country are with us. They are supporting us because they love Mr. Modi. They support our agenda. So please don't try to denigrate the huge support we have got from people. Please, Ghanshyamji.
No,
Nobody's questioning the support. Nobody's
No,
questioning
he
the
said middle
support
class. He
that
said
you
middle
got
class
from the
is
people. I'm
disillusioned.
just
He
saying
said
that in a
middle class is
no,
disillusioned.
listen. No,
He said middle
you
class is disillusioned.
misunderstood.
If middle class is
You
disillusioned,
misunderstood.
do you think we'll come to
You
power with such a majority?
misunderstood.
So you contradict
You
your own
misunderstood.
statement.
Oh my God, you're not prepared to listen. You misunderstood. What I'm
Okay,
saying
okay,
is
Mr.
that
Sudesh Sharma, let them respond.
yeah, in a tricky situation, in a situation where there is seemingly no consensus or an issue needs to be resolved, the RSS steps in and acts as some kind of an arbiter. I was praising your party for that you're lucky to have an institution like the RSS as some kind of a guide, friend, philosopher, guide, arbiter, whatever you want. You can choose a term of your convenience. But I think you obviously misunderstood. I didn't even go into the terrain of ideology or anything because, yeah, as you said, that's another issue of debate. Now, you said that by tomorrow, all of them will fall in line and they will endorse the Gandhi leadership. I'm not too sure about that. I think things have gone a little farther than we expected this this time.
But let
what
me
Mr.
ask you
Sudesh
this
Sharma said.
question, Radhika Ramaseshan. Even if we say that they will not immediately fall in line, but what do you expect to change from the issues that they have raised? Frankly, nothing is new. This is exactly what they should have done after 2014, if not after 2014, 2019. Can they now implement or at least begin the process within the next 6 months?
Not at all. The Gandhis are not going to accept any of the proposals that have come up in the letter. Make no mistake, because they are firm in the belief that it is their prerogative to suggest how the Congress should shape up, if it needs to shape up at all. What is the roadmap? What is the blueprint? I mean, you had all kinds of reports after every election debacle. Tell me what has been implemented from the A.K. Antony report or anything that came out subsequently. Nothing. It is Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, and Mrs. Priyanka Vadra who will decide what is the roadmap. I mean, make no mistake, nothing from this letter is going to even go up for consideration.
And may I just add this? I think this is just taking the people of this country for a ride and trying to fool them, which Congress party, I don't know why they believe they can still do that. Priyanka Gandhi says we should have a non-Gandhi at the helm. Sonia Gandhi offers to resign, but at the end of the day continues to run as the Congress party chief with no clarity on when elections will be held. She's very hurt by anybody who's saying that she is not active and visible as part of the party leadership. Rahul Gandhi keeps resigning, keeps putting out feelers to say he's reluctant, he will not take charge, but everybody around him is only rallying for him. I mean, I don't understand, Ghanshyam Tiwari, who is the Congress party trying to fool, or the Gandhi family really trying to fool by putting out these multiple, views by the three main people within the family?
Well, clearly, no one is convinced on how this is playing out, and as a result, that is the reason I hold my view that is the reason a new normal is more likely than ever before. And with respect to the point that Sudesh Verma took objection on, it is very clear that there is this very huge space about how jobs can be provided in this country. BJP is not addressing that space. That's a national space. Someone has to address, and it remains unaddressed no matter how the Congress party has tried. Second, how will the constitutional integrity of the country remain in the face of the institutional attacks that exist in the country? BJP is prime reason for that. So BJP is not addressing that. And who will be the leaders who can speak to the middle class, to the educated, not the Adityanath, not the Kapil Mishra, not this unfairness that BJP has created in its especially the 2020 setup. So I think that I hold to two grounds. One, that the two camps are determined and it opens doors for a new national narrative. And two, there's a very large space at the national level with respect to all these important things. While BJP can be a very strong organization, they have conceded this space. They cannot authentically talk about things that are important to people's life and have people believe in them. They can talk about anything else. They can create people, make people angry, but they cannot make people progress. And that is where there is a space in political spectrum.
Madhavan Narayanan wanted to come in. Please go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I find it very interesting that Radhika mentioned the RSS and its role in shaping the BJP and influencing the BJP. Just as an aside, it was believed that in 1984, the RSS even supported Congress because they thought that national unity was under threat following the assassination of Mrs. Gandhi. But that aside, the interesting point is that I believe I've coined a new term called the liberal parivar. Like the Sangh parivar, there is something called the liberal parivar, which is includes everybody from Bollywood actors and academicians to stand-up comedians and writers and NGOs and organizations. Though there is a big social and taking a point from Ghanshyam Tiwari, who mentioned very astutely that there is an ideological space that the BJP cannot occupy. That vacuum exists, that space where the social left and the liberal order and the ideological centrism is there. That's what Congress has been historically leading for the past 7 decades or so. But that space is vacant, and that space will demand and command a leader. And the liberal parivar is there to support it. And what Radhika mentioned just now is there is this stubbornness in the Nehru-Gandhi family that only a certain kind of social coalition led by that family can actually be influential in the country. Whereas I believe the time has come for the liberal parivar to be taken seriously, and that today's dissent letter and the dissensions show the certain emerging significance of this liberal parivar. It has not yet grown roots. It is not yet grassroots. We should not overestimate its importance, but we should not underestimate it either. And, as you know, Mirror Now as a channel itself covers issues in a manner that is distinct from certain historical ways. That itself shows that there is an emerging liberal agenda, which can be of the right or the left, which remains a space that needs to be occupied by someone. Congress was best placed to do it, but they seem to be doing everything to botch it up.
Because if you are talking about opposition,
we are simply a news channel that highlights the issues that concern people of this country, irrespective of ideologies or political parties in power. But I understand the larger point you were trying to make. Radhika Ramaseshan, do you want to comment on that?
No, I was talking about opposition unity. If you want to have a semblance of opposition unity before 2024, you need a fulcrum, you need an anchor. And I would always imagine that it could only be the Congress that could kind of bind the opposition spectrum together. Unfortunately, if this is the state of the Congress, I do not see any scope for opposition unity. So you will have the non-aligned parties either going with the BJP or fighting on their own and not really achieving very much. So, I like the coinage liberal parivar. So right now, the political future doesn't look too robust for the liberal parivar, or principally because the Congress is in such disarray. I wish the Gandhis would realize what the kind of responsibility that they owe to the country at this juncture. Unfortunately, they're too caught up within themselves.
Well, Ghanshyam Tiwari, is the opposition, why is rather the opposition still struggling to find their space and their place? It seems as if no party can actually think beyond saying, oh, we will be whatever BJP isn't. We're simply just anti-BJP in that sense. I don't think people are that fed up with BJP at all that they choose any other party. When will we see this vacuum being filled?
Well, at the state level, we already see that there are leaders who can fill these aspirations, which are very real aspirations. I want progress. I want good education, safety. I don't want my children to talk about mutual hatred. I don't want them to follow leaders who create anger, and I want them to find good education, have scientific temper, go find a job and live a life thereon and contribute to the nation. This is a natural aspiration at state level. The leaders who articulate that aspiration, along with some level of regional, some state nationalism, or sub-nationalism rather, right? They are able to come to power. Be it, look at the case of JMM. Look at even the reign of Nitish Kumar for a long time in Bihar itself, irrespective of which side he went to. And I think Samajwadi Party has stayed the course even after losing the 2017 elections on its slogan of "Kaam bolta hai." So at state level that is defined. It is at the national level that is missing. And I think for national level, whoever emerges or how that this whole process comes through, one can also look at what happened in Bharatiya Janata Party in the emergence of Mr. Modi. It was not out of the consensus of the late Sushma Swaraj ji and late Arun Jaitley ji and Nitin Gadkari ji and Rajnath Singh ji and Advani ji, the top 5 leaders of BJP at that time, and Venkaiah Naidu ji, that Mr. Modi became the leader. He was not a consensus leader. He forced an upsurge within his own party that was strong enough for these leaders higher in hierarchy to know that his time has come. And I'm sure that is exactly the liberal parivar that was brilliantly coined here, right? I think that is exactly what is possible. A group of leaders may force an upsurge for a party that naturally occupies that space to articulate a vision, to present someone who can carry it forward. And now it depends on the confidence of the leaders, these 23 leaders and beyond, who can rally this liberal parivar, right, to build that upsurge and to communicate that message that the nation and its space of progress and harmony and vision is much bigger than any one particular sect.
Can I respond?
Well, I can say one thing for sure. We could have another conversation on liberal parivar for sure. This phrase is intriguing me, and let's see how soon it catches on. But we will definitely have a conversation. And Madhavan Narayanan, I'll call you for that one as well. Very quickly, Mr. Sudesh Sharma, do you want to respond to what Ghanshyam is saying?
Yeah, I want to. Yes. You have experimented with opposition unity in Uttar Pradesh, and you have seen what happened. You got a massive majority. You see, there are 150 Lok Sabha seats where either we or our allies are not there. So that space will occupy very soon. You will see that in 2024. You should see that also in state elections. It's good if two coalitions come together, something on the pattern of United States, conservatives and Democrats, Democrats, and then people can decide that which party or which alliance is, articulating what they want to speak. So naturally, it will be good for the country. So let them come, let them resolve their problem, because in most of the states, Congress is opposed to their own likely allies. Will BJD go with them? That's a big issue. Can BSP and the Samajwadi Party come together with the Congress? These are very big issues that they need to resolve. And it doesn't seem likely. It is not going to happen because there is inherent contradiction. So we'll all wait and watch. We are all students of politics. It's an interesting time.
Okay, well, it is an interesting time for sure. I don't know if there will be a change anytime soon this year, at least in the Congress party. The indication officially was also that, well, it's an unprecedented time. There's a pandemic in the country, economic slowdown, job loss and whatnot. And this is not the time or the place for them to convene an AICC session right now to even hold elections. And so no AICC elections for now. Sonia Gandhi continues completely out of time. Thank you to all of the panelists who have joined us today. A lot of our panelists tonight extremely confident and extremely at least optimistic about the fact that something has begun to change, the call given by these leaders will not go completely waste. Maybe we will wait and watch. A meeting is still happening right now at Ghulam Nabi Azad's residence, but I just want to say one thing, viewers, from the way it was built up and what sounded like perhaps this is the final time that these guys are coming together and will ensure that they hold their ground and ensure that there is a change. By the end of it, almost all of them seem to have toned it down, mellowed down, or completely changed their stand. Let's wait and watch if those within the Congress party, the veteran leaders, the young ones, party Gandhi loyalists who raised the issue of a non-existent active visible leadership are actually able to insist and continue to push for the change. Because if they don't, and this party continues to be in the limbo, it's not just disastrous and destructive for the grand old party, but it's also a problem for a democracy. A democracy cannot continue with just one strong party, a few smaller ones challenging it area by area. You need a strong opposition, united or otherwise, but a strong opposition to keep a government in check, to make the government answerable and responsible. And for that, you need a strong opposition. Congress party doesn't seem to be really interested in doing that. Completely out of time in this edition of the Urban Debate. Thank you for joining us.